Today is Wednesday, September 16. My name is Pastor Michael, and this is Wilderness Wanderings. Today our text comes from Ezra 3. Despite their fear of the peoples around them, they built the altar on its foundations and sacrificed burnt offerings on it to the Lord, both the morning and evening sacrifices. Verse 3. When you are starting over, where do you start? This is the question occupying the Jews who have returned from Babylon. As we saw on Monday, they were few in number. Their land was in rubbles, occupied by wild animals, weeds, and foreigners. How should they begin the rebuild? They began with the altar. For those folks, the altar was their place and means of prayer. Prayer came first. Even before the temple, they needed the altar. On that altar, they offered their sacrifices of confession, of thanksgiving, of praise. What's interesting is that Cyrus had sent them home to build a temple. Such a structure would bring prestige and financial benefit to him. He was not interested in Israel's God, certainly not in worshiping that God. He recognized that a flourishing Jewish community in Judea would be beneficial for him. That was his interest. But when the Israelites returned, they built the altar first and renewed the sacrifices which God had commanded, morning and evening sacrifices. God was first. Their concern was to honor God in the manner that was pleasing to him. They began the sacrifices that God had commanded. In the verses following our text, we are told several times that they followed the instructions God had given to Moses. All of that came before the temple. The temple was not necessary. The altar was. It was their place of prayer. We can learn from these Israelites. Soon we will be invited to return to our church building for worship services. But maybe we cannot come. Maybe not for health reasons. But does that mean that we are barred from God? Of course not. Jesus told us that true worshipers worship in spirit and in truth, and all who come to the Father in his name will be received. Again, for those of us who are able to return to the building, things will be different. Does that mean it will be less? Will our worship somehow be less acceptable? Of course not. A broken and contrite heart you, God, will not despise, David wrote in Psalm 51. If we come this way before God, then we can also sing, "It is well with my soul." Our text also tells us that they rebuilt the altar despite the fear of the people around them. We are not told exactly what they were afraid of. However, from other parts of the story, we learn that they were afraid of opposition, of enemies. Their enemies greatly outnumbered them. They might also have been afraid of compromise, which later they did fall into. The altar was a place from which they prayed. Here they could pray for God to protect them from their enemies. Here they could ask God to purify their hearts, to help them in their obedience. Fear drove them to their knees. The altar with its morning and evening sacrifices was a reminder that God was with them. Through Moses, God had offered this word, "For the generations to come, this burnt offering is to be made regularly before the Lord. There I will meet you and speak to you. There also I will meet with the Israelites, and the place will be consecrated by my glory." This altar is no longer with us. It has been replaced by Christ himself. As John once testified, the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. When we turn to him, we are in the presence of God. Turning to him is always the first step. It's all that is needed in the face of fear. As you journey on, go with the blessing of God. May the peace of the Lord Christ go with you wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness, protect you through the storm. May your day end with rejoicing at the wonders he has shown you. May you rest in his provision as he brings night and then new dawn.